Steve here with Alloyed RPG. In this video we will be talking about the Artificer Awakens. It is the second New Hinterland campaign in Alloyed RPG, and I'll be going through that kind of as a, I guess a behind the DM screen kind of thing, giving you some tips on how to run this campaign. So if you are somebody who's a player only, in other words, you are not going to DM this, spoiler alerts ahead. In fact, the whole campaign is ahead, so just keep that in mind. As always, please like and subscribe, and the link to the free download of the Artificer Awakens in PDF will be in the description on this video. As with most of the Alloyed RPG campaigns, the Artificer Awakens is a one-shot. It takes place in the New Hinterland continent, and there are 4 acts to this particular campaign. It will be Act 1, From the Hollows to the Heights, which takes the party, gives them their assignment first of all. So I guess that's maybe a good GM or DM tip for you. I always like to give the party their assignment, tell them what they're going to encounter before they gear up. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't carry over characters from before. In fact, most of them like to do that. But as far as their gear goes, I let them kind of listen to the narrative and then gear up after that before they actually start on the campaign. I like doing that. Believe me, it doesn't throw anything off, and it doesn't always help them either. But that's something that you should know about the actual campaigns themselves. When we write these things in the introductions, we try to put little Easter eggs in there. So that way, you know, if the party is paying attention, you know, maybe put the emphasis on the correct syllable to let them kind of know that maybe this is an Easter egg, and maybe they could think about how to gear up for this. When we played this campaign, one of the things that I was very impressed with is one of the party members actually geared up on magic for amnesia. Because they would have to go into a place unseen, and basically that party member was smart enough to think, well, if we do get seen, maybe we could at least wipe out their memory. So anyway, that was pretty cool. So I always like to let them gear up after they hear the scenario, and that's just kind of a good time for introductions, and we usually have pizza and stuff like that anyway, so that's a good time to eat while they're working on their gear. So anyway, what it'll do is take the party down into the abandoned mines of Riverbend, and there they will learn of some of the history of New Hinterland. This lore continues to build as the world expands. They will be going through there and encounter a cave hulk, or a crab hulk kind of monster. One thing with this, I really like the interaction there. What happens when this cave hulk is finally killed, the blood starts to ooze out and bubble up and start becoming these cave beetles. Now, we save those to the end, so just remember that. Make sure your party gets out of there before these things fully develop. You want that to be on the end for sure, and I'll tell you why once we get there. So in the cave, in the abandoned mines, that's where they'll find the portal. This is where we put a riddle that they'll have to solve. One of the cool things, I actually have keys, like physical iron keys, that I handed to 3 of the party members. That comes up as part of the campaign as well. So any you know, visual props you can do is helpful for sure. So after that, Act 2 is Desolation Ridge. So on this one, they come out of the portal from the mine, and they end up in the portal on Desolation Ridge. That is this, you know, the tall mountain range that's covered with snow. And right away, they run into issues. So when they go through a portal, nasty things can happen as you go through portals in Allied RPG. That certainly happens to them. In our campaign, yeah, before they went through the portal, they were smart enough to tie a rope on the first one through, and that actually helped, because what will happen is they fall off a ledge. But in this case, they didn't because they tied a rope to them. So I thought that was, again, pretty clever on the part of the adventurers. But once that happens, they encounter these two Yeti scouts. The Yeti scouts, the best thing for the party to do is to follow them and to listen in on the conversation. If they happen to get into an altercation or kill them, what they'll discover are some sort of saddening things, because the one scout will be the father of this little Yeti girl that will end up helping them. So that is not a good thing to do. So fortunately, our party took advice and actually hid behind some rocks and listened to the Yeti and followed them in. There's not a whole lot that happens when they follow the Yeti to the village. What they'll find is that the Artificer that they're looking for has helped the Yeti with technology. So, for example, they've got robot bartenders and jukeboxes and electricity and things like that that you wouldn't expect there. So that's just an allusion, again, to the lore that's building on the greater universe in which New Hinterland is just a part. So, so anyway, that's that part of it. They will kind of learn some things from a Yeti monk if they choose to listen in a bar. And then basically after that, Samantha, who is the Yeti girl, will take them to the base of the mountain on which Maesteg Monastery is built. And then the explorers will have to go up there. That's the next part. They will go into up to the monastery. There's a little bit of a perilous or treacherous pathway up. And some things I do as a GM are seriously just to get the juices flowing and to create tension. I will do dice rolls, and we even write about it, like, hey, make them roll dice here or whatever, just to create tension. So could mean nothing, absolutely nothing. But the party doesn't know that. They're always just like, oh man, what are we rolling for? So good little technique there if you're a GM, just to build that tension in place. So once they get to the monastery, they will have to use one of the keys to open a door. As they are waiting, there are two griffin statues, big bronze griffin statues that slowly start to come alive. I actually set a physical timer. I just have my phone, and I do that a lot at my table, by the way. My players will tell you that. I like to run timers. Sometimes they mean things, sometimes they don't. In this case, the timer is, once that timer runs out, those griffins will come alive and engage in battle, which is not a good thing. So hopefully the party figures out how to unlock or stop them quickly. So if not, you can have a total party kill right there at the front door of the monastery. So just be aware of that you may want to temper those griffins a little bit, so you don't just have a TPK, but that could happen. So once they get into the monastery, they are then challenged with hopscotch, actually. The Artificer is a little boy, and on the floor of the monastery there is a hopscotch grid. There are little traps to that. So if somebody tries to bypass that grid, they get shot with a poison arrow that paralyzes them for X number of rounds. And this kind of can happen to each of the players. So when somebody completes the grid, a gold coin is thrown out onto one of the sections. If somebody is greedy and they pick up the gold, which I had a dwarf in the party that I was very surprised didn't, but they will also get shot and paralyzed as well. It's kind of an integrity test, so to speak. So after they get through that, they will then encounter the triclops. Now, admittedly, when I first wrote this campaign, the triclops was way too strong. So I have, for the release to the public, this triclops has been tempered down. You actually want it to be so that the party almost or does kill the triclops. So they should take a beating, but make the triclops get really close to death or to kill them. And like I said, I tempered it way down. I originally had a target of 16, something like that, and we ratcheted it down to an 11 for the actual published campaign. So that should make things a little bit better and a little bit more in line with the story. So let's see. After that, once they finish that, they'll have to go back through the portal. And what they're going to discover is that the Artificer is actually able to create his own portals. So that's a huge development in the storyline. He's not just able to artifice, a toaster oven or something like that. He can actually create portals, which is going to be pretty significant later in the lore and all of that kind of stuff. So once they get back into the mine, that's when they're going to have to encounter the beetles that have grown from the blood of the cave Hulk or the crab Hulk. And this is where you run the hordes mechanism in the core rulebook 2.0. So that's where you take a whole bunch of dice and you throw them all at once. I can tell you that is absolutely brutal. So, that was a good testing run for the hordes mechanism. You definitely don't want to have the actual creatures in a horde be too strong, because just the sheer volume of numbers is going to make them strong enough. I can tell you that one of the players died twice. Got resurrected on a very lucky roll. But he died twice, and most of the other players came out of that cave with like 2 HP left. That was it. So the horde, and that was after 1 or maybe 2 rounds of the hordes mechanism. So just beware that the hordes mechanism is extremely deadly. That's on purpose because sometimes it's best to run. I actually tried to give the party every opportunity I could to escape the mine without confronting the horde, and they chose the one path that dead-ended, and they had to fight him. So anyway, just beware. That's why we save hordes until the end, because at least then they've finished most of the campaign. So finally, when they get out of there, they are kind of empty-handed. They've learned a lot. They've gotten some glimpses of the story and the lore of New Hinterland, but they end up not getting the Artificer, and so that can be a little bit disappointing. At the same time, that's kind of life. That's sort of what happens. So, and of course, then at the end, the people that were responsible for the keys get a little extra bonus. I think we give them 50 gold pieces, something like that. So anyway, just some little tips on how to run the game. Pretty straightforward, should be pretty easy. Of course, if you have any modifications, feel free to write them in the comments below or email us, but have fun with it. So that is the Artificer Awakens, the second of the campaigns in the New Hinterland series for Allied RPG. Thanks again for watching, and may your dice always roll with advantage.